Hello, Miss Smith. Thank you for coming in today. When we met for your pre-conference, we talked about your lesson on fractions, discussed students in this class. You had some behaviors we were worried about, and you wanted me to pay attention to your pacing, right? Correct. The principal says, "How do you think your lesson went?" And the teacher says, "I think it went well. There were not many behaviors in class that day, so the lesson ran smoothly. If there were behaviors, it was nothing major. I could redirect quickly and efficiently to get everyone on track without losing instruction time. This was a very hands-on lesson, and I think the students handled it well. I still feel my pacing is off, but I'm not sure how to increase my pace through either my fluency or concept development without losing my students through the lesson." The principal says, "I agree. Your lesson ran well. The students were on track the whole time. There was a side conversation going on when you were passing out the fraction strips, but you noticed it right away and quietly and discreetly got them on track by asking the whole class to clap once, and then twice, and then to put their hands in their lap. Their conversation ended and they followed directions, ready to get back on track. I took in your lesson internalization and with your times and what you rearranged due to the use of the materials in this lesson. I time-stamped when you moved from one activity to the next. Based on this data, your pacing was fine within your lesson. If you're worried about pacing, your bell work took 15 minutes, which is not a part of the lesson. It was part of just your day. Usually bell work should take about 5 to 7 minutes max. I would find a way to cut time there." And the teacher says, "I agree. It can be hard because the bell work is the best time for me to do work on the TEKS and star formatted questions. I will work on it and speed up my bell work to give me more time during the lesson." The principal says, "Excellent. I think speeding up the bell work will help you feel like your pacing is more on track through your lesson time. As I watched your lesson and followed along in the script, I noticed that your communication through using probing questions to clarify, elaborate, and extend learning while providing wait times was prevalent. You knew your students, and when they needed probing, you went back and asked it a different way to ensure each student was successful. For example, when Marcellus was stuck on what the name of the fractional unit was in fluency, you scaffolded down until he got the right answer. You asked him, "How many parts are in the whole? What is the whole split into?" And he answered 4. You directed him to identify how many were shaded, and he said 2, and then you asked him what the 4 equal parts were called. He was stuck again, so you asked, "Is it fifths?" He said no. You asked if it was 6, and he said no again. So you asked, "Well, if it's not fifths and it's not 6, what could it be?" And he got to fourths, and he was able to get the correct answer of 3/4 from there. On the other hand, when you felt that students were getting bored or had a solid feel for fractions, you asked probing questions to extend their thinking. After the students had their fraction strips made in the concept development, you asked them to identify which piece they would want if it were a cake, and they answered the 1/2. They knew which piece they would like. Then you asked them if it was fish pizza and what they would want. And after they all said ew, and all of them said ew to fish pizza, they chose the 1/8 because they would not want a piece of that one. They were engaged in thinking beyond simply identifying the fractions. And the teacher says, "Yes, they thought the fish pizza was gross. I try to make fractions real because it can become a real abstract idea quickly if it's not real for students." The principal says, "Well, you can tell that they were engaged and had a solid foundation in fractions. Now, when the students transitioned to the problem set, you gave them 2 must-do problems. During this time, you went over the champs' expectations and told them that they could work as a group at a level 1 if they needed help, and if they needed further help, to raise their hand and you would come to them. As they were getting out their Chromebooks, you had 2 tables that started talking right away about off-topic subjects. You did not correct them because you were setting up your materials to be able to monitor them on Lightspeed and help where you were needed. Once they all got in, they seemed to get to work fine. The tables were working well together at first. When the first group got stuck, you went over to help." Christian turned around in his chair and started talking to the table behind him. Another table started drawing on each other's papers and got off topic. Once you were done helping the group, you redirected these kids fine, and they got back to work. And the teacher says, "Oh, I didn't know it was that bad." Principal, "It's not that bad, just an area we can work on. What do you think you could do to keep students on task while you are helping a group?" And the teacher could say, I could teach kids more sentence stems for when they are working in a group and teach them what it looks like while I am working in a group. I need to focus on these expectations and then hold kids accountable for when they are not on task. And the principal says, I like that. So you're going to teach these behaviors and expectations explicitly. You're going to give students sentence stems to use while they work in groups. And if a student does not meet your expectation or does not follow directions, you are going to hold them accountable. I think that is a good way to ensure that all students know what is expected while having them be responsible for their actions. I think that will work wonderfully. Do you have any questions for me? And the teacher says, no, I don't think so. And the principal says, okay, let's go over your t-test now. And if you come up with any questions or concerns later, you're always welcome to come back and talk to me.